Okay, hello and welcome to Priorities Board meeting monthly for March 27th. I wanted to. Oh, Wayne, you just got here. We just started. I recorded, so it's okay. Hopefully, I will be uh, good about getting this. Let me get the link for the doc that I prepared, started here, and then a new one here, and then a new. So can I share a screen while I'm recording too? I hope so. Cool. Oh, Fulton. Nice. This is like almost working out. Okay. Just overview of where we've come. Second instance of ESP and DXD inclusion. I really love the word instance, Sky, when you use that. I think that's, I like that. I want to keep using that. And then new learnings and ideas, next month voting. Yeah, we can kind of get to some things. So actually, I'm going to switch this. I want to actually go to the second instance of ESP and DXD inclusion. So just um, for reference, so there has been an update to, I guess, the instance. And when we say instance Sky here, what we're talking about is the number of points that addresses have to allocate. And so I think if you look at on this
So
one,
just
DXdao,
sorry,
Candy
just real
yeah, go ahead.
real quick on terminology, I guess. So if you go back to the main page, every single one of those is its own instance. So there's actually 12 instances. Like you can spin up, right? They have a certain amount of points. They reference a list of number of points on users, and then like the number one there is DXDAO's is a DXDAO main DXDAO instance on ESP the first time, and that just had just had rep holders, and the same rep voting powers was distributed against those first 6 instances. So now we have instances 7 through 12, which is like a second group of instances, I guess.
Right.
And in this case, it's factoring in rep holdings plus DXD holdings, as long as you have more than 10 DXD, because 10 DXD is equal to 1 voting point. So that is and 7 through 12 all use the same list of voting power. And so everyone that has voting power, which is rep holders and DXD, or you have a combination of the two, you can vote on 7 through 10, and your current points will be the same for all of the 7 through 12 instances, which is different than the first set of
Right.
time.
And I'm just looking at this now because I think here I had 84, Kenny Fork at 84 in this one versus 127. And I think actually partly that comes from one, I did a rep sync on Gnosis chain. So I think that brought it up to 100. And then I think the 27 is probably from the DXD. And then if I were like a random, I don't know if someone has a random DXD address that I can look, like a random.
Do you have roughly 270 DXD?
That I think it would count. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I think that one is right. That's a good. You do. I'm going to look.
Yeah, there's only 3 addresses that in combination have over 100 voting points. But there's a lot more addresses that have voting points now, because if you have any DXD over 10 DXD, you can vote from that wallet. Yeah.
Got it. So like this one is our, no, where is he?
And the DXD, thanks to Ross G, I think, is for wallets across all 3 chains: Arbitrum, Mainnet, and Gnosis chain, and then your points are allocated to your Gnosis chain address or that address. I guess it doesn't matter what chain.
Yeah. So I don't know. Let's look at this one. I guess can I look at? I can't look at other ones now that I'm realizing this.
No, no.
No, so I can't. So anyway, you would have to be. So Ross G has that. It does not count LPs. Well, I'm hoping, or I'm expecting it does not, based on.
No.
I don't have LPs anyway, so just checking.
So yeah, I yeah, yeah. Well, that
Well,
was
this is this is this is eventually. I mean, this could be an issue, but governance 2.0 is something where you're looking at rep and DXD. We have some iterations of that coming before that. This is one of the first applications where it is looking at rep and DXD for something that DXdao needs to do. And it's not including if you're LPing and governance 2.0. I'm not even sure, and maybe this is a flaw, but governance 2.0, like you're going to have to stake your DXD. And if you're staking your DXD, it's just sitting there. So that's going to take away from people LPing, which is could be a problem now.
Yeah, I think two things. I think you can include the LP token in a calculation for governance 2.0 too, as well, if you wanted to. It would just be able to like look to more than one ERC20, and then two, I also like think LPing, now that there is DXdao providing liquidity itself, I think there's less need for that. But I mean, agree kind of long term or however you're kind of setting this up, it is important. I mean, for instance, I had when I was saying to the ones that count, I had like 25 DXD in hats that didn't count, and I'm not sure if it should or shouldn't, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I think this is kind of cool. It's a cool, like, again, just getting like a combined score of different things. I would kind of be interested to see how it ranks, and that I think is a good thing of kind of previewing how to get more signal from that. So that's kind of where we've come. Everything on this page, though, is just the same things we had before, and so we would just kind of be voting on the same things before. But I want to talk a little bit about maybe how we can do things a little bit different and whatnot. So 3 months in, this is kind of my conclusion. There's too many priorities, not enough signal, right? I think just even looking at this and kind of scrolling this, you just don't really, it's almost too hard. It's kind of overflow at first. What's wrong? One, I think hard to understand all of the priorities and how they interact. There's so many different ones kind of on there that it's hard to really understand each one individually into a certain extent. Two, it takes too long to go in and rate. Like, it was nice to have people go and try this for experiment time at the beginning, but it's a pretty significant effort to be able to go and evaluate, assign points very easily to 30, 40 different ones. I think that can be very cumbersome, and then you don't end up having a lot of engagement, right? Because then it's only the most engaged that are there voting. So I think, and then if we wanted to provide more context for all of that, that could be a way, and that would require more work. But then that would also require more time on governance or rep and DXD holders to actually go through the priorities there. So I think in general, we just need to figure out how to get I guess shrink exactly what we're trying to get signal on, rather than kind of everything. The ideal state, I was thinking this, the Tinder of governance, not as a thing. People haven't said this for Tinder for a while. A lot of startups were funded based on the Tinder of X, but I think here it's an idea of how do you have something very quickly that people are like, yes, no, right? They're kind of getting a flash of it. I don't know, maybe it's not a picture, but something kind of very quickly that you're doing, that you're evaluating, and that quick signal is better than having one that is fully evaluated from that. So I think one of the ways kind of to fix, and so I guess the key are being too many priorities, not enough signal. So I think the key thing is how do we have less priorities that are kind of on this thing, and how do we get them there, and how does that actually have some type of signal there? So I think here you have priorities must have sponsors, right, or some other marker of the community. The only way you're kind of on this sheet in order to be able to vote, right, on these things is if there is like some sponsor that is getting there. And I'll get to a second in terms of like what I think that could look like. But just in terms of like, you know, the way of looking at this, right, I think this is not, I think when we're doing things the first 2 months, where, you know, DXdao is trying to figure out what it is to prioritize. Whereas I think what we should try to be going forward more is like, there are stakeholders or people in the community that they want to do something to get something prioritized, and so they have to bring it before DXdao and try to get it authorized for something there. I just want to check to see if like this sound, there's like someone doing some stuff to outside. I guess no one. It's being blocked out by my. I'm impressed. Yeah, so I think that's a subtle difference that we want to have here, right? Is that there is like DXdao is not seeking out to always figure out what it is to prioritize. It's more of like things are being brought before it, and it's then making a decision, which I think puts the burden of or the responsibility, burden and responsibility on the new priorities or the people that want to get things to change. So some proposed changes. So I think first and foremost, like obvious priorities, I don't think are needed, right? I don't think we need to get people to constantly give signal on things that we know we should be doing, or things I think more importantly that were like already explicitly promised or mentioned in in the guild's budget proposal, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to work on this, I'm going to work on that, and if it's already kind of assumed there, it's not so much we need the priorities board to like assert that. Maybe there is something that kind of that comes in terms of evaluating things, but I don't think we need to focus on the obvious priorities too much. I think the key thing we want to do here is focus on new ideas or old ideas on the side, right? So it's things that have come up, say, in the last month, last couple of weeks. I can think of a couple I want to get to in a second that are, hey, these are some interesting ideas. Should we insert them into the priorities that we need to be focusing on? If there are 3 or 4 new ideas in a month, how do we actually like rate those? How does a new idea that we kind of bring up, how do we get initial signal on whether that is an idea worth pursuing? So I think that's what we're kind of looking at to kind of shift to. And you know, the way I put it here is, you know, this is something that's added on top of, but not in replacing the responsibilities and the goals for budgets, right? That those are what guilds are expected to perform and to do. But the priorities board is more meant to capture like new things that come up during that time and a way of gathering signal quickly to be able to need that. I think we need to be very strict on like the number of priorities that we can get on the board, just because I think it gets too long if we have 10, 15, 20, things like that. And so I think what we're trying to do is more of like, of the things that are 5 priorities, like how do we think people are going to allocate them there? And if there are 5 things that everyone are really aware of, that we can do that. So I think I have here no more than 5 priorities listed for DXdao and no more than 3 listed for each guild. We could also include top forum posts and other automatic signals. And then I think the vote should be more social and engaged with the community, right? Not just about people on this call, but not that just that. Like, how can we have something that is packaged into something so a Discord person who's only who pokes his head in every once a week, that they could participate in this very quickly with kind of voting on different things there, making it easy for that. One of the ones I think actually does a good job of this that does vote every month is ENS small grants. And so this is something, as I said, they have like this voting almost every month. You can see there's like 41 proposals here. I had voted for some of these for them, but yeah, there's like lots of little short things here that people can kind of vote on. So obviously these are though individually voting for these things as opposed to ranking them. But I think this is like a model maybe to think about there. Individual guilds. Sorry, this is So I think guilds can and should propose their own priorities. I think this is like a little bit different than what I was thinking of before. It's more of like ideas that the guild is wanting to work on and prioritize, and then they're looking for signal and kind of need that. I do think you need to have the ability for other people to add things to the guild's priority list. But I think if you have the guild driving it, they're setting the agenda for it, then you really are like isolating, trying to get the specific signal of the community on what it's interested in. But yeah, as I said here, you having the ability of another entity or stakeholder to be able to add things to the priorities board, that would come with something like maybe like having a second, right? So that would be the 200 points that Sky was saying. That I guess would be like the two people with 8% or something. If you had enough of that on a new priority, that would be a way of getting it on maybe on the board for that. So like some ideas that would maybe be a little bit more conducive, I think, to this new way of thinking of it. So I'm thinking of Vinky. This is kind of some swapper things right here. I think like a perfect example. Like I think there's three really kind of exciting things maybe that are ongoing right now that are all different priorities. We just saw a great demo on the zapping contracts there from I think Kosh is his name, and really kind of cool things there in terms of building a front end for that. There's also some great things on Stackly. It looks like going to get a grant from CowSwap for that, looking at that, and then obviously like all the stuff going on with Arbitrum growth. Like those are each things that have like popped up in the last month that would I think be very interesting to see. Like, well, what are the ones that are like priority between those? And those I think are Venki or ones that Swapper Squad is like already working on and focusing on there. And so it would be a way of really, again, just like gathering the signal for that. And in the same way here, I think with DXgov, if you look at maybe these are like the three things that they're thinking about and working on. I've talked to Ross about this. Maybe it's a little bit, he would frame it a little bit different, but maybe these are the three things. Integrate multiple governance systems in the front end. It's basically having the tally angle, being able to put something, being able to have a bunch of DAOs that all you can search from through Davi. The key with that is basically plugging into Compound Bravo contract and having that integrate into the Davi front end. Gov 1.5 and Gov 2.0 implementation. Obviously, we just saw this kind of an update on this in the last 2 weeks, both on the 1.5 and the 2.0 stuff. So that's clearly like a work stream that's already going on. And then the Davi DAO setup wizard. This was something Medusha presented on a call, some ideas about it like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So anyway, these would be like, okay, these are the 3 priorities, and then let's just get a snapshot of where governance thinks of these things, and just having it be 3. Again, it would be easy to allocate these things according to the different things. And for instance, I think it's a real interesting idea to think about, well, whether Davi should focus on like this DAO setup wizard, which would really be trying to build some lock-in into the backend and the smart contracts, or whether it should try to be getting like more users through just trying to integrate as many DAOs as possible. Some other ideas, I was just kind of like, thinking of different things that have, again, things that have come up in the last like month, how you kind of bring those ideas there and you're looking to get some signal there. And so for voice, right, flagship branding, Swapper on Arbitrum, maybe there's some other things in terms of wanting to get signal here. But I think the key thing is, shortening or limiting, figuring out how to limit the number of priorities, making those something that is like a guild driven thing. These are the priorities that the guild itself is focusing on. And then having that be easily voted on. This kind of gets into, do we need to use the ESP computer, this app, or Snapshot or anything like that? I think I'm still open to all of these ideas. We're still trying to figure out if this is something that makes sense and it's worth the time and effort, and that. But I'm open to looking at different ways of doing it. I think the key thing is the having the combined rep and DXD, I think, is something that people are exploring a lot right now, and I think that's a key thing, regardless of whether that's on Snapshot or an ESP there. I think it's a little bit trickier to think about how DXdAO's priorities board overall matters, right? Like what is worth trying to get signal on. I think the guilds are like a little bit clearer there in terms of their priorities on executing there. But that, maybe that's something we can talk about today. So, yeah, that was what I had planned for here. We can go over maybe some of the like, what are the priorities there, but maybe just kind of some any thoughts or comments on changes or updates to this. Yeah, maybe these things right here.
So these are a lot of changes from the first one. In my mind, the way we tried it the first quarter and the second quarter, like you only get any value to see if the priorities change, right? That it doesn't matter what's on the priority, it matters what changes from the first time you use it to the second time you use it. Now we have more information. So one thing we changed is now, because people really thought DXD holders weren't represented, now DXD holders are on there, so that we'll see if DXD holders vote. But we can replicate the way we did it the first time and see if focus or priority changes. And I agree that it's not it's not as easy for people to use. But if a lot of people that use Snapshot, they just come in and they just like vote in like 3 minutes on Snapshot, and they don't actually like think about the issues. If we make it too easy for like 100 people to just come vote on priorities, but they're just going to do it in like 3 minutes, in my mind, those aren't the people. Like, I don't really care if someone's just paying attention for 3 minutes is going to vote on priorities of DXdao. I actually don't care what their opinion is. I don't think that their opinion is actually that valuable. So what we want is people to put a lot of thought into actually the like thinking about which of the priorities are important, spending an hour thinking about it and voting and ranking their priorities, and get everyone to do that, and then compare that to the last time and see if things have changed. Some of these additions are also good. Maybe people like Gil's proposing new ones. Other people can add new ones. But I think you will miss out on some of the effectiveness of the ESP tool if you don't like try to do a second round to compare it to the first round. Like, that's my opinion, just to try it again. We could do another way to signal as well, in addition to ESP, maybe that's more focused or that's quicker, that's more fun for people to do in 3 minutes. But I still think we should try at least a second iteration of ESP to compare it to the first one.
Yeah, there definitely is that continuity advantage.
Just
Like,
to be
if it ends up being exactly the same as the first one, that would be quite interesting to know. If it's changed, that would also be interesting. And if we had more participation, that would be also interesting. But everyone with rep, well, especially if you're a regular contributor and you have rep or you have DXD, you should probably participate on all of the 6 instances, I think.
So to make sure that we reach as many people as possible, should we tweet about it, make notifications, do all of those things?
Yeah, especially since DXD. So anyone that has DXD on any chain can now, at least as long as it's more than 10 DXD, can now participate in this signaling. But look at the swapper snapshot that Vanky did. There's 5,000 wallets. Like, it's just like some bot is literally just filling it out and doesn't matter what it votes, right? Like, those signals on that don't matter if it's 4,000 bots, right? Like, that's insane. We don't care about those. Anything that's under what is it, under 50 swapper is almost fake, right?
Right, but I mean, I think it was great to get all of these. right? These are real people in the community that I know of.
Totally.
Yeah, Wayne, you were saying.
Real DXD holders, yeah, we will have a chance to participate.
Yeah, Chris, what?
I
Sorry.
thought you were saying something I couldn't.
I just wanted to say, just to be clear, that this is the second iteration going on to this ESP now and participating in this next round, right? That is what we're basically saying is this the second iteration, correct?
Yeah, I think the terminology I think there is a new number or base number instance that includes DXD holders here. So everyone has all new numbers and all new amounts to allocate, and they're the same, ones there. And this I think just got done last night or yesterday there, so you can see there. I think Sky has gone through and done one to all of them. But yeah, I think for now we definitely want to keep. I think the continuity of this is be able to go over these and talk about them every month and figure out how to vote. I was just figuring out maybe some ideas on how to make things a little bit more wider engaged, because I feel like this is a little bit in the weeds, but maybe, I guess this guy's point, like maybe you do want people in the weeds going through this kind of every month and doing that. Yeah. I mean, I think it is interesting. Yeah, that's what I guess to say. This tool is for people in the weeds, though, right? Yeah, I mean, I am a believer that you need to engage lots of different types of people and stakeholders with different types of involvement. So I think it's very important to engage people in the weeds. I think DXdao does a good job of doing that in terms of the public calls, in terms of everything being on chain and everything in the forum. Like if you want to get in the weeds, everything is right there and able to. And then there's several different levels of familiarity. And so, yeah, maybe this is when we want to start people in the weeds at, but I guess just at some point, I'm trying to figure out how to have another outside layer of signal. Just mostly because it expands the governance space. Like, I think for me, I think I think DXdao has engaged governance in lots of areas, but I think the thing that's been missing is we haven't figured out how to expand the governance base, expand the number of people that are giving signal and participating in governance. And I think we have a very high barrier to do that now. And this maybe is a way of lowering that barrier a little bit.
So the question is, could someone who is deep in the space but is not focused on DXdao, they're focused on their other project or another project, the ENS or Shapeshift or something, could they come, but they have Swapper token, they probably have some DXD token, could they come to DXdao in this priorities board signaling and bring an opinion that is valuable? Like, should DXdao focus more on Davi or more on Carrot or more on community outreach? Can that person decide what's best for DXdao? Like, that's a question. If they literally are not paying attention to DXdao, and then once a quarter they come and vote on which of those three things is more important, I'm not sure that they would be able to make an informed decision.
Unless you're just time, like, right? At some point you got to believe in democracy or not, right? And I'm not saying you have to do everything in that direction, but that's the only thing we're trying to do, is expand the governance space so it's not just the people on this call.
Yeah, so I'm asking, so we need to talk to one of those people and say it would be good to learn why they think.
Yeah, but instead of trying to seek those people out and talk to them, you have to like Field of Dreams, right? If you build it, they will come. Because I don't think we've done a good job of engaging. Maybe you can engage with those people yourselves, but if we just use the excuse they're not interested, I don't think that passes. Because again, the goal is to expand the governance base. And if they're not interested, then that means we're not doing a good job of presenting things that are interested. It's so funny you guys can't hear this because it is just raging out. They're taking down a tree right outside my house. And then I also just did see another local news crew come through. Sky, do you not think that we need like a broader governance base?
No, well, yeah, no. I continually say we want to expand. We actually want more people with more opinions from more communities bring ideas and participating in DXdao. And that part of that is governments, part of that's actually contributing to DXdao. That's expanding the opportunity field of DXdao. How we do that is the hard part, but like, yeah, I don't know if getting like the swapper, yeah, compared to the swapper vote. I mean, yeah, the legit people that voted, that's good to know their opinion on that. The bots, I guess you just throw out. But yeah, I would like to know what other legit people in the space think DXDAO should work on, for sure.
Right. And I just think we have to simplify it a little bit instead of getting the complicated point. Not to call on
What's the app? What's that app that ENS is using to do those ones that you just showed? Like, is that a rank? Is that ranking?
This is not ranking. You have you can vote on a certain amount every round. I think you can vote as many as you want with your ENS allocation, right? So Candy Burger is 47.5, so I voted for this one 783, and then yeah, all of these are just the votes that you get, and they're ranked by that. But you can vote for as many as you want. But there's lots of ones nobody voted for.
Yeah, that decides where the funding goes, but that's like 1 ETH for each one, right?
Right. So this is 1 ETH, and then they also have another one that is they have like a little bit larger grants. That's the one that goes to like limo, but this happens every month. And maybe that's part of it, is that there's like money involved, so that because sometimes I do get people that are like, "Can you vote for this?" The small grant, because it's it's 1 ETH. Venki, I'm curious, maybe to gather your thoughts. I know that you've had, I think, some good insight into this. Any ideas on how to improve things going forward?
I mean, we cannot decide from what community says. Maybe there has to be like how what Sky means is like, how would anybody from outside the community know what is happening in and out of the product guilds, right? Because the struggles that we go through, nobody has a clue sitting from outside. I mean, even Ross asked a lot of questions in the forum, but he doesn't understand the real problems. I mean, it's fair for him to ask from a community participant that he's asking all of these questions, but for a guild to be efficient, if we just give this prioritization to people outside, it's a hard take. Yeah, I mean, you can disagree, man. We'll vote through democracy anyway. So
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why actually in this I was thinking but this does need to be like guild driven, right? This is not as much people saying you should work on this guild. It's more of the guild saying this is what we're working on, this is what we're going to prioritize, and then you're kind of asking for validation. And I think that's kind of the way I think is a strong like governance is you're presenting a plan, you're presenting like the priorities, you're presenting other things, and then you're basically getting confirmation or affirmation from governance, and that requires less overhead to evaluate. It's like a veto, having a veto proof or something.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a new learner to this, so I'm just moving with the flow. To be honest, because it is new for me. I'm
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is to read Ross G's point there. I think like if people don't understand the issues, then like I think that's incumbent upon us to explain them or figure them out because and there's different levels of this. This is why you get maybe you explain that so people can have this at the half year budget. They're aware of these things, but like we need to there's working in conjunction with things where it's not just the guilds executing. It needs to have because I mean the point of this is like outside perspective or other perspective is very helpful, right? This is why you have independent boards. This is why you have you don't become siloed in people executing on things. Is because it's very helpful to have that that input. So I do think it's something to seek out, but I like the idea of it being kind of led by the guilds, saying these are the priorities, and then voting on them. And again, if people don't understand them, then that is incumbent upon the guilds or governance to.
So one,
and when you mentioned that, oh, sorry, you mentioned that we have independent boards in the company, then the boards are people that has this experience. But then when we say that the community has no understanding of what the real issues are, I mean, what level should we go to communicate these real issues, right? And then I would probably have to give this information out every day or every hour on what these real issues are.
Yeah, I guess when we think of the community though, like I think we're thinking of people like on this call, right? And like I think I'm pretty dialed into what's going on into Swapper, right?
Yeah.
I think it would be a good signal to figure out people on this call, like how would you rate these three things, right? And I guess like the people that vote in DXdao governance are pretty informed.
Yeah, but we're talking about how to expand it. So I think we have to drill down maybe. So the Swapper snapshot vote on whether or not to do the campaigns is actually interesting. Like let's say there's 40 Swapper token holders on that, or 50 that actually voted on that snapshot. Snapshot's easy. Those are engaged Swapper holders. They hold Swapper token, and they feel like Swapper token holders should feel like they own and control what happens with Swapper. The problem with this vote that we're doing right here is maybe we need to like split up how we're doing everything. Like maybe Swapper should get more of its direction. The Swapper guild should get more of its direction from Swapper token holders and not from rep holders and DXD holders. Like I would think that all the people that voted on the Swapper snapshot in the last few days should signal what the Swapper guild should be working on between Stackly, Zapping, Arbitrum growth, and other Swapper initiatives. So maybe we're asking the wrong audience. And it depends on the guild, depends on the product, depends on those things, right? Like the biggest issue right now and we've seen some comments in the forum and stuff, is like Swapper, the product, has this token, but we've never been able to like turn over the decision making and the governance to that token yet. And the people that hold that token and have been buying that token and farming that token and have the governance token feel like have no power at all almost. So we need to like get their opinion more. Yeah, we need to get those people that vote on the Swapper snapshot way more their opinion, because those are the people we want to decide swappers decisions, right?
Absolutely.
We really, I mean, we really need to like turn over decision making on what to do with the ARB token drop and maybe the direction of Swapper and these different initiatives within Swapper that are all flowing and going to deliver value to Swapper token. That decisions kind of need to be made by the Swapper token holders, given that we launched the token. In DXgov, there's no separate token. In Carrot, there's no separate token. That's the difference, I guess.
Yeah, but
and DXdao won't vote with the Swapper tokens that it holds, right?
Yeah, I do think though that even though there's a separate token and it's different for Swapper, I do think that the type of community member you're looking to engage with to get that signal is probably the same for Swapper than for DXgov. Maybe there's more of them for Swapper because there's more token holders, but it is maybe your casual DXD holder in the same way it's your casual Swapper holder that you're trying to engage with. And I think it does. I like the idea of like going after the people that voted on those, right? That's like, oh, you're like engaged, you're curious, you're kind of there. And I think we do need to figure out like how do we build momentum for this, that it's not so much everything's going to be created at first, and we know who is the way to kind of expand the governance system and power, but it's more of like identifying groups or ways that are good for building that governance structure and system, and then like going in more on them, doubling down on them, or doing something similar there.
Yeah, and since Swapper token holders, like the tool that they are using, the only tool they know, the only tool that's common in that space is Snapshot. We could take the 8 main possible priorities for Swapper Guild or Swapper DAO, let's call it Swapper DAO, and like put those on Snapshot, and you can do a ranked. I think you can do ranked on Snapshot. Like, it'd be worth doing that in addition to this thing, because right now we're not including Swapper token holders at all. This is a huge problem. So we should do a snapshot. If that's where they're all voting, then let's do a snapshot for Swapper token holders.
Yeah. I like that actually. I think it's just like I think Swapper has some momentum to build off of here in terms of engaging that. So I definitely think we should be, building off of that.
I guess, and like every decision Swapper makes, let's say once a week, there was a snapshot with the most important decisions of that week for Swapper DAO. Let's start calling it Swapper DAO. Like, that's the only way they can voice their opinion right now is through Snapshot, because we don't have another mechanism. But like, what if once a week there was a snapshot where Swapper token holders, that regular thing, the regularness is like the thing that keeps you coming back too, gets people more engaged, turns them from passive Swapper token holder to, oh my God, I see value coming to Swapper now. If I vote more and push more good ideas, and I start contributing to Swapper, and I start sharing Swapper with the world, and tell everyone why you should use Swapper front end instead of Uniswap front end, that will help Swapper. And as a Swapper token holder, I'll win with Swapper.
Yeah. Cool. So I guess kind of 3 takeaways here as we, one, we have this new instance that includes DXD holders, and we just had that there, so we want to figure out how we can just run it back again and see if there's some continuity there then. So that's maybe something we do this week. And then 2, I think there's an opportunity on Swapper specifically, like how can we, probably using Snapshot, like how can we engage something else this month as a way to build that engaged community. whether that's another thing on a campaign or something else. There, I think that's a good idea. And then I think 3 is how to figure out, I guess, for next month or going forward, where do we want to end up in terms of structure and how things are working there. And so I presented some ideas here, and then maybe we'll have some different ones next month, in addition to having more signal on how the second instance went with the including DXD holders, and then 2 on Swapper, and seeing if there's any momentum from engaging that community again. Cool. Yeah.
For the snapshot for Swapper, I don't know what Snapshot's capable of, but is it more like as a Swapper token holder, here are 8 things. What do you think the most important thing for Swapper is, or what do you think the Swapper guild should work on, or is that possible to come up with 8 things that you just rank, basically?
I mean, I can have things, but then with only 1.5 developers that I have right now, I don't know.
You want to put 8 things on there?
Yeah.
No, that's the whole point. You have the 8 things there, and then you only work on the top 2 things according to priority of Swapper token holders.
Yeah, I mean, I can list 8 things, but then if the token holders wanted us to work on Zapper, then it's like a different set of skills that I would need. If it is on Stackly, it is at a different set of skills. If it is on Arbitrum Growth, it is a different set of skills. So yeah, I mean, if I don't think Swapper is in a state where people could just come in and then signal this. It's because when they signal it, I think the guild is not structured in that way. Like, this is just a product guild, and if, let's say that if we want Arbitrum Growth, then we need to go to Voice and then say that this is what we need to sell on. This is what DXdao need to spend some effort on sales and marketing, right? So it's not.
Yeah, I don't think this is for this. That's because Swapper token holders don't. Right, that's like a different governance structure than the Swapper guild, right? And so I kind of agree with you that if they did say Arbitrum Growth, then that is something that would not apply to the Swapper guild. But I think that is still good signal, and is not necessarily that should be incumbent upon you. It's more of a signal from Swapper holders on what should be done.
Yeah, I mean, we can give it a try and then see. That's the only way to find out what the holders are thinking. So we could definitely give it a try and then see. I have 80 items, so I have to look at top 8 now, which is okay.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. I'll write up some of this and post this in the forum, kind of a summary, and then Sky, maybe we can think about doing a little ping on the new ESP instance sometime this week, maybe giving a little bit of explanation, but everyone can go through and do the vote. And then, we'll think about what we can do on Swapper for this month in terms of engaging. Awesome. That was it. Does anyone else have any other